Back now at 8:09, it would be painful enough to learn you were being conned by a boyfriend. So what would you do if you learned he had done the same thing to 3 other women? Well, that's what happened to this group, and they decided to take matters into their own hands. We're going to talk to him exclusively in just a moment. But first, with the backstory, NBC's Kevin Tibbles.
He said he was in love.
Very, very charming man.
Over and over.
Very gentle, charming.
Problem is, he was saying it to several different women.
He just represented a very kind of exciting life, exciting possibilities for me.
And with each one, a different story.
We were going to get married. He talked extensively.
It was, it turns out, a web of deceit. All spun by 44-year-old Englishman Simon Reed, who after 3 years of masquerading as everything from a jet-setting businessman to a daring rock climber, was caught and exposed by the very women whose hearts he broke.
I don't even know what the truth is anymore, to be honest.
The sensational transatlantic story now blares from the British tabloids. First of the 4, Minnesotan Andy Nash, who met him online.
I think lying just comes naturally to him, so he was, he's able to, spin all these stories.
Stories like being the father of a fighter pilot injured in Afghanistan. That's what Laura Buckingham says he told her in England.
I was absolutely flabbergasted by what he'd previously said about his son being involved in a helicopter crash.
But Reed, according to Joanne Ward, hit her up for money, a lot of money, about $27,000.
It was after we'd been together about 4 months. I didn't suddenly, within a week, give him my credit card. It was on the basis that we were an item.
Ward says Reed even lived for a time in this cabin on her property in England. But it was another conquest, Nicola Hillary, who started to connect the dots.
Business meetings at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, and it did start to get a bit, I did think, I got a bit suspicious.
Nicola did some research and found a blog from one of Reed's other girlfriends warning of his deceit. She tracked down the other women, and they hatched a plan.
Oh, hello.
The plan was to lure him to a home, catch him red-handed, and videotape it all.
Ask away.
There's 3 of us on the go. How the do you do that?
I know it's wrong when I'm doing it. I just don't seem to stop myself. I can't explain it. It's not something that I think of when I'm lying. It's really not.
I can never trust anyone again.
I don't go into it to on people.
After grilling him for several minutes, the jig was up.
So will you be happy that I'm going to call the police now?
Yes.
To come in and see you?
Yep.
And you're going to admit to defrauding everyone?
Yep.
Simon Reed, trapped and apparently confessing to it all. He is now behind bars, serving 30 months in a British jail for 2 counts of fraud. The judge called his offense despicable. For these women, a bit of consolation and finally, justice. For today, Kevin Tibbles, NBC News, Chicago.
And Joe Ward, Laura Buckingham, Nicola Hillary, and Andy Nash are with us exclusively. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Before we talk to you, I want to mention we did reach out to Simon Reed's lawyer, who said that Simon has cooperated in full with the police and pled guilty. He says he has also expressed his remorse and believes his sentencing is just. What a web of deceit. Let's just go down the line. What did he tell each of you his job was? Andy, we'll start with you.
Independent contractor.
Nicola?
International businessman.
Okay, Laura?
Drug and alcohol counsellor.
And Joe?
A professional indoor speed climber.
And do you feel like he kind of tailored his story to what he thought you wanted to hear?
Yes.
Explain.
He would just spend so long talking to you. When you got together, you'd have these really long conversations, and I think he was trying to work out what sort of guy you were looking for, what you were interested in, and then he would tailor himself to become that man.
And Andy, this started with you in Minnesota in 2008.
Yes.
You said he was talking about getting married, and then you found out what?
I found out he had a wife already, so he couldn't marry me.
And you decided to write a blog.
I did. Yes, I already had my blog going since 2003, but I wrote a kind of a scathing post about him, used his real name, used his photo, and said, watch out for this guy.
And meanwhile, he moves back to the UK. Joe, you start dating him. He told you an incredibly sad story about his father being on life support. And then what did you find out?
Yeah, he cried on my shoulder. Initially, he worked at my local pub, which is where I met him. Cried on my shoulder, told me he'd had to switch his dad off life support. And then after that, he told me his mum had tried to commit suicide because she was so upset about it, and that she'd had to be sectioned into a local mental hospital.
And then one day, you called looking for him and found out
that he was with his other girlfriend.
And his father was alive?
He certainly was, yeah. I had a telephone bill, and I phoned the landline on there and spoke to his mum, and then she said, do you want to speak to Simon's dad? So
and Laura, he had another sad story for you, that his son was in the Royal Air Force and had lost both legs in Afghanistan?
Yeah, both legs and an arm in Afghanistan. I mean, how can you reject someone when they tell you that? It just brings out all your nurturing instincts and just feel so sorry for the guy. And it turns out his son's never been in the RAF. He's never had any accidents.
And Nicola, you got onto this pretty fast, and you actually kind of pulled this group together. What was your experience with him?
He told me variations of the same theme. His father was dying when we were dating and had died a few weeks after we met each other. And the same, his son was in Afghanistan, but no limbs removed. It's all slightly different variations on the same theme.
All right, and then whose idea was it to confront him on video? That tape is priceless. Was that your idea, Nicola?
Yeah, I have a friend who's an ex-journalist, and I asked him to come along and record it all because I thought he'd keep it more factual, you know, and businesslike.
And what did you, Andy, what did you guys think of his reaction? When there you are standing before him, it's all of you. You said it lasted 4 hours.
It did.
Well, that may be punishment enough. Some of you said you kind of felt sorry for him in the end, Laura. Did you?
Yeah. Well, I'd only found out that he was a liar 24 hours before the confrontation. So, to all intents and purposes, I was still in a relationship with him. I still loved him at that point. And I felt really sorry and really guilty for calling the police on him afterwards.
I was going to say, Joe, I know you loaned him $27,000, pounds, but dollars for us, and he's now in jail. Mm-hmm. How do you guys feel about that? I mean, does that feel just to you, or does it feel harsh?
I feel vindicated.
Yeah. All right. Well, ladies, a lot of people can really relate to what happened, and he sounds like a real jerk. Thank you for being with us.